There is a specific look in the eyes of a man who trusts himself, a quiet weight that cannot be faked or purchased. It is not the loud, performative confidence of the arrogance that seeks attention, but rather a calm, terrifying stillness that suggests he has nothing to prove to you because he has already proven everything to himself. Most people spend their lives frantically curating a public image, begging for the applause of strangers to drown out the silence of their own mediocrity. But true power, the kind that withstands the erosion of time and tragedy, is never built on a stage. It is built in the dark, in the early morning hours, and in the lonely moments where the only witness to your actions is your own reflection. The ancient samurai lived by a code that had little to do with public reputation and everything to do with internal integrity. They understood that a warrior who required an audience to be disciplined was not a warrior at all, but an actor playing a role. The legendary text *Hagakure*, dictated by Yamamoto Tsunetomo, speaks of the ghost that lives within us, the internal observer that sees every corner we cut and every lie we tell. If you cheat in the dark, you may fool the world, but you will never fool that internal witness. Self-respect is not a feeling you conjure up with affirmations. It is the reputation you have with yourself, earned through the accumulated evidence of private victories. Consider the story of a man named Marcus, a man who, by all external metrics, was living a successful life. He was charismatic in meetings, admired by his peers, and capable of maintaining a polished veneer of competence. Yet, Marcus lived with a gnawing, low-level anxiety that he could never quite silence, a feeling of being a fraud in his own skin. The source of his anxiety was not a lack of ability, but a lack of private integrity. He knew that his public persona was written on checks his private habits could not cash. He would preach discipline to others while secretly succumbing to cheap dopamine. He would promise to finish a project and then distract himself for hours, only to rush the work at the last minute and present it as effortless brilliance. Chapter 1. The Architect of the Lie, ****. Marcus was suffering from a misalignment of the soul, a condition the Japanese call a lack of Makoto***, or truthfulness. In the Bushido code, Makoto** implies that when a warrior says he will perform an action, it is as good as done. There is no gap between his word and his reality. Marcus lived entirely in that gap. Every time he hit the snooze button after promising himself he would rise early, every time he ate poorly in secret after claiming to be on a diet, and every time he procrastinated on his duty, he was casting a vote against his own identity. He was teaching his subconscious mind that his word was meaningless, and consequently, his self-respect withered. The human mind is an accumulation of evidence, and Marcus had spent years building a mountain of evidence that he was untrustworthy. When he looked in the mirror, he did not see a capable man. He saw a liar who had managed to trick the world. This is why compliments from others felt hollow to him. He knew they were praising a mask, not the man beneath it. Deep down, he feared that if the world saw his private lack of discipline, the entire structure of his life would collapse. He was a king in public, but a beggar in his own home, governed by impulses he could not control and enslaved by comforts he did not earn. Chapter 2. The Eye of the Storm. The turning point came not with a public failure, but with a moment of unbearable private clarity. Late one night, sitting alone in the silence of his apartment, Marcus realized that he was exhausted not by the work he was doing, but by the energy required to maintain the illusion. He recalled a principle from Miyamoto Musashi, the sword saint who spent years in isolation perfecting his craft not for an audience, but for survival. Musashi wrote, "There is nothing outside of yourself that can ever enable you to get better, stronger, richer, quicker, or smarter." Marcus realized that he had been outsourcing his self-worth to the opinions of others because he had no internal reservoir of respect to draw from. He decided to begin a practice of unseen discipline, a regimen of actions that would never be shared, posted, or spoken about. He started with the smallest, most trivial tasks that he had previously ignored. He made his bed with military precision immediately upon waking, not because anyone would see it, but because it was the first contract of the day he had to honor. He began to exercise in his living room without music or distraction, focusing entirely on the sensation of the movement. When his mind begged him to quit or to check his phone, He refused, not out of motivation, but out of a desperate need to reclaim his territory. He was retraining his mind to understand that when he issued a command, the body must obey. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 3. The Code of Silence, asterisk, asterisk. As the weeks turned into months, Marcus began to enforce a strict code of silence regarding his new habits. The urge to tell others about his discipline was strong, for the ego loves to be patted on the back. But he recognized this as a trap. In the samurai tradition, energy is contained, not leaked. To speak of your plans before they are executed is to dissipate the power required to achieve them. He realized that seeking validation for his habits was an admission that he was doing them for the wrong reasons. If he needed applause to maintain his standard, the standard was not his own. This period of silence was the forge where his new character was hammered into shape. He found that the difficulty of the tasks increased, but his capacity to endure them grew exponentially. He began to read difficult texts instead of scrolling through feeds. He sat in meditation to confront his anxious thoughts rather than drowning them in noise, and he completed his work days before the deadline. There was no fanfare, no award ceremony, and no external shift in his status. But internally, the noise had stopped. The anxiety of the imposter was replaced by the calm assurance of the professional. Asterisk, asterisk, conclusion asterisk, asterisk. When you build self-respect in private, you walk into the public world with a different energy. You no longer need to announce your presence because your presence speaks for itself. People can sense the density of a human being who keeps their promises. There is a gravity to them that draws others in. You stop negotiating with your weakness and you stop tolerating mediocrity, not because you are cruel, but because you have raised the floor of what you accept from yourself. Do not wait for the world to give you permission to be great, and do not expect a parade for doing what is required. Go into the dark, into the solitude of your own life, and do the hard things when no one is watching. That is where the warrior is born. That is where the heavy, unshakable foundation of self-respect is laid, brick by quiet brick.